All right, so Zoom sucks. So, quick recap: your show was awesome. I saw titties twice. An angry, an angry Masher hit a girl instead of the dude when he tried to get revenge, and then the girl at the hotel had stinky pussy fingers. That's why she didn't come to the desk right away. She was in the back fingering herself.
And that's a recap of Dylan's trip to Louisiana for the week and a half.
Had a longer version, but fucking Zoom.
Yeah, we had like a good 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, so.
The Zoom just deleted. So sorry, guys. That's a moment in time. I mean, it just wouldn't be the same if we tried to rehash that conversation. Won't feel natural. You guys will smell it on us like the stinky pussy fingers.
Yeah. So basically, we'll recap real quick. We're getting into the Swiderians, who predated Gobekli Tepe. And the Swiderians thrived during the 2,000-year period of temperature increase known as the Allerod Interstadial. That happened between 13,000 and 10,800 years ago. The climate got warmer in that period because it was an ice age before that. Then it started warming as the ice sheets retreated. The Swiderians were thought to follow the
reindeer herds.
They
traveled north.
Yeah, following the ice sheets receding and hunting reindeer going north. So
they're able to track their influence through the unique stone tool manufacturing process that he used, and these arrowhead shaped, or these leaf shaped arrowheads, excuse me, with a double tanged end that they're able to find, spreading throughout the countries of Poland, Slovakia, Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Moldova, Ukraine, and Russia. So quite a large area of influence.
These countries right here on the map: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Poland. So basically, this whole area was the
stretching from there to the Ural Mountains, which is a mountain range that runs north-south, kind of towards the western edge of Russia.
Yeah, so they came from here and inhabited here. And what I find interesting about that is that there was a 2,000-year period that the climate was warming from the ice age, and they gradually went north as the ice sheets were melting and more earth was coming into view. So that's such a cool period. And then boom, the Younger Dryas Impact, the
ice age,
and they had to start going back south, and that was at 10,800 years ago.
So what's really interesting about the Swiderians is that when you think about normal hunter-gathering societies, you think they just hunt, gather just to survive. But these cultures actually had mining operations. In particular, they found mining operations in Poland of these chocolate flint mining operations with some of the earliest recorded deep cast mining operations anywhere in the world. Each mine included extraction shafts and shallower pits and raw materials that were worked into what's known as pre-cores and preforms, which were long blank blades, which would be transported across hundreds of kilometers to new locations. They found this was done through an extensive bartering system that was set up. They found curved back knives at sites in southern Poland that were virtually identical to those found all the way 1,400 kilometers away in the Crimean highlands of Ukraine. So similar that they could have been made by the same stone napper. So it's quite obvious it's from the Swiderian descent.
The reason this is significant is because we're coming off of talking about Gobekli Tepe, which is the first megalithic site built in modern human history, which starts at 9600 BCE. That technology at Gobekli Tepe echoes the more ancient cultures that go back 13,000 years from Ukraine, the Swiderians in this area. And then they go back even further to Russia. So we're predating and going into the cultures that existed before modern history. That's why it's interesting to talk about or to point out.
We have all these similar stone tools,
weapons making, bartering, like political power, shamanistic power, elitism. That's what came out of all this. like we said before we lost that piece, but it's like the Victorian age and the Middle Age, where the roots of that, like when you trace back music, blues, and you go back to Stevie Ray Vaughan, but then you can go back before Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then you can go back to like before that. It's like the same thing. Gobekli Tepe is like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then the Swiderians is like B.B. King, and then Russia is like
the bluesmen in the Mississippi Delta.
I was gonna go back further, like aspects of Beethoven and things that evolved into
classical music.
Yeah, like way back. So it turns out these hunter-gatherers were complex and had extensive, advanced everything going on, and their tools and their methods and their traditions make their way across all these cultures over time, down through Georgia into Turkey,
Pontic region,
where that's after the mini ice age let up, and we have modern civilization. There was the warming period
where they receded northward.
Yeah, there's like a few phases. There's the original ice age, then there's the warming period, the Swiderians thrived, and then the Younger Dryas sent it back into the ice age for like 2,000 years, and then after that 2,000 years, society reemerged in Turkey, and it's basically this society.
It traveled southward to get to warmer regions of Earth.
It's so fascinating to take those thousands of years and just boil it down into 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's oversimplification, but that's essentially what happened.
Yeah. And you haven't even gotten to like the medieval times that made Europe, that made America. Like,
so made the modern times.
Yeah. So crazy. So Epic Gravettians is where we're at now. And the Epic
so we've established that these were complex hunter-gathering societies that, focused on resource procurements, prominent hunting and fishing locations, prominent locations where you could mine exotic materials to make stone tools. And this allowed them to establish different type of elite cultures. Shamans came into play in that conversation as well, where each of these different societies that had accesses to these important resources would have likely had their own shamans for political purposes. So very interesting stuff, that these weren't just simple hunter-gathering societies, that there were actual politics at play here. And that eventually led to warfare and violence in the long run. But now we're at Epic Gravettians. So where did all of these Swiderian societies get their influence from? Take it away.
Shit. The answer is at present unclear, especially as current day archaeologists studying Anatolia's pre-pottery Neolithic world seem unwilling to accept the clear similarity between the Swiderian and Epigravettian toolkits from north of the Black Sea, which would be here if you're watching, and those found at sites like Gobekli Tepe in southeastern Anatolia. Studies have shown that what is known as blade technology, pictures on the screen, detachment of blades, bladelets, and microblades from prepared conical or bullet-shaped cores began in northern Eurasia, central Mongolia in particular, before moving gradually via the Ural Mountains into Europe. So let me pull out the map. They're talking about way up here, dude. Mongolia, Russia. So all of that technology started here 30,000 years ago. And then it moved slowly through the mountains all over here up to 15,000 years ago. So those ancient ones were the Epic Gravettians into Russia. By around 30,000 years ago, this new technology, achieved generally using a highly skilled process known as pressure flaking, or the pressure technique, had been embraced by Eastern Gravettian societies at places like Kostinki on the Don River in Western Europe. Let's look at that.
Western Russia.
Western Russia. Kostinki right here. That's Kostinki. That's the Don River. Yeah, boom. Want to go kayak the Don River.
And then thereafter, that technology was adopted by the Gravettians in the Crimea, as well as the local Zarzian culture of Iran and Iraq, the Swiderians of Central and Eastern Europe, and eventually by the pre-pottery Neolithic population of southeastern Anatolia, i.e. Gobekli Tepe. Both the microblade technology and pressure flaking had certainly entered Anatolia by the latest 9000 BCE, as is evidenced from the wide range of stone tools, including projectile points on display at San Larifa's Museum of Archaeology. These were found at Gobekli Tepe, and in some cases, they date back to 9600 to 8800 BCE.
Who built Gobekli Tepe?
More than likely, the local populace, consisting of many hundreds of hunter-gatherers and almost certainly descendants of the Zarzian culture that had inhabited Southeast Anatolia during the Epipaleolithic times. But the principal architects of Gobekli Tepe were probably Swiderian groups from Russia and Ukraine that brought with them knowledge of how to make blades, bladelets, and microblades using the pressure technique.
I find this stuff so freaking fascinating, dude. Although we can say very little about the Swiderians themselves, we do know a great deal about their direct successors, the post-Swiderian cultures of Northern, Central, and Eastern Europe. As we will see next, their cosmological vision of the heavens matches very well that displayed on Gobekli Tepe's Pillar 43. Yet to establish this relationship, we must shift our attentions, temporarily at least, from southeastern Anatolia to northwestern Russia. In particular, an area close to the border with Finland, known as Karelia. Here, quite extraordinary mystery awaits us.
And here we get to look at a lake in that area, which is pretty dope.
Like Onega?
Lake Onega.
Yeah, so this chapter is fascinating because it basically breaks down. I had to read it a few times. Karelia is Russia.
Right.
But it's on the border of Finland. Which is the next evolution of like the Gravettians and then the Swiderians. Basically, like, does that make sense? The Gravettians were Karelia and then the Swiderians were Finland. So they break down.
Now, a lot of what they talk about in this chapter is like post-Swiderian cultures. So like the cultures that were influenced by the Swiderians.
The Mesolithic age.
Yeah, from like 9,500 to 5,000 BC.
Yeah, because there's a window. There's how did they describe it? These complex hunter-gatherer societies, which continued the long-distance trading networks of the Swiderian forerunners, thrived in what is known as the Mesolithic age. This is the roughly 4,500-year window squeezed between the end of the Paleolithic or Old Stone Age at 9,600 BCE and the emergence in Western Europe of the Neolithic or New Stone Age at 5,000 BCE. So there's like the meat of the sandwich is
a 4,500 year period.
Yeah, and that's what we're getting into right here, as you said, with what was it, Karelia and Finland. So one of the most important post-Swiderian cultures was that of the Kunda. And I looked up, does the Kunda have anything to do with Kundalini? And their name comes from Sanskrit, and they have a lot of like Indian words and pronunciations. So I feel like Kundalini.
Probably so.
It's in that. I couldn't find a direct connection. Like Kunda comes from the word Kundalini, which means this, but all the languages and epistemology is connected. And because I know there's probably somebody out there who thought of Kundalini, but the actual city is called Kunda. They occupied territories from the western foothills of the Urals, which would be here, across to the Baltic forest zone. Their open-air sites can date to anything between 9,500 and 5,000 BCE, having been found in Western Russia, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, and Scandinavia. The Kunda's largest known cemetery is Yuzhny Oleny Ostrov, southern Reindeer Island, located within Lake Onega, not far from its eastern shoreline.
We're looking at Lake Onega a lot in this chapter.
Yeah, and I got it up on the map right here. So this little island is in Lake Onega, which is much northeast of Estonia.
Like 40th border of Finland and Russia, and
because Lakunda is right here in Estonia. So this is the like the Swiderian post-Swiderian culture, and then this, from what I gathered, is actually the Kunda, the Euro. See, it's kind of confusing. It's kind of confusing. I thought I understood it. Now I fucking don't.
I know that a lot of the cave petroglyphs that they're going to be talking about all were found on the shores of Lake Onega. So I'm assuming that the Kunda culture stretched all the way to that area. So basically, and it actually says that in the chat that they stretch from the Ural Mountains, which is over there and kind of towards the western central Russia, all the way to Finland right there, basically. The Baltic zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
cemetery,
right.
They found 170 skeletons buried on this island, like a big mass grave. And
that becomes important because we get to look at some of their burial rituals and kind of the significance of what they find there. They found substantial numbers of bird bones, in particular those belonging to the shoulders, legs, wings. Several species were represented, including osprey, the white-tailed sea eagle, the great gray owl, and various waterfowl, including mallards, and most importantly, whooper swans, Cygnus cygnus. The last being represented only by wing bones. So it has been proposed that the wings of the whooper swans carried some special symbolic significance. In some cases, the wing bones were found close to the hands of burials. And it's thought that such graves where bird wings or parts of wings have been deposited near the hands strongly suggest that these birds may have played a role as carriers between different places or states of being. They go on to say that wing bones have perhaps symbolized complete wings or a living bird. In other words, the deposition of single wing bones substituted for the burial of entire wings, very obviously because they were seen as providing a means of flight between this world and the next.
And they followed a migratory path too, which was an interesting part of this chapter. The swans in that area, let's go back, show you this area. The swans in this area, they followed a migratory path, was it northeast to southwest, which at the time of year when they were migrating lined up with the Milky Way, which was also bridging those two parts of the sky.
Wild.
Yeah. So because their souls are also migrating into the afterlife, and like we talked about last episode, through the Milky Way or the Dark Rift, which is where they believe the soul was going, then the swan in their migratory path is like a metaphor or a parallel to the soul's path.
Yeah, that's some wild shit.
Yeah. And that tradition is consistent in all of the super ancient stuff they find in Estonia, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, Poland, all over Russia, dating back 30,000 years, 15,000 years. Turkey, Gobekli Tepe, 9,000 years. Like
birds are always kind of used as showing that as being the what do they call it? The pomp, psychopomp.
Yeah, it carries
psychopomps
the
to carry
carrier
you into the afterlife.
Yeah, the bird represents carrying the soul, and another bird represents receiving it on a pillar.
It's super fucking interesting, man.
Yeah. So they found dead bodies. Oh, I got a picture of so check this out, man. I don't think we got to it yet. We're about to. Tuonela, what's the name of it? Tuonela, the Swan of Tuonela. Are we there yet? I don't want to spoil
Not
it.
yet.
We're getting okay. Okay, I won't stick to
So let's talk about they found Karelian rock art. On the
and here it is
northern
right here.
shores of Lake Onega, there are some 1,300 carvings that have dated to the Neolithic age, circa 4,200 2000 BCE.
I'm sharing some carvings from that actually right now. So,
although the discovery that a large number of settlements in the vicinity of the rock art date from the Mesolithic age suggests that local rock carving formed part of a long tradition with its roots in the local, I don't know how to say that word, Swumos, Jarvi, and Kunda cultures.
Somos Jarvi.
A great many of the petroglyphs, around 43% on average and up to 60% at some locations, represent swans or long-necked waterfowl. Some are scaled down in size, others are lifelike, while still others are gigantic, up to 4 meters in length. Mostly the birds shown are whooper swans, although what appear to be ducks and geese are also present. The necks are also often exaggerated in length and made to look like long poles. Some depict swans with human arms or legs, while others show anthropomorphic figures with the heads of birds. The discovery of the upright standing burials found at the Yuzhny Oliny Ostrov Cemetery are suspected to be those of shamans and has led to the proposal that the swan-human hybrids found among the rock art of Lake Onega depict shamans who have adopted the gods of the bird to enter the next world. So very interesting, especially whenever you consider some of the depictions carved on Pillar 43 of Gobekli Tepe with the birds that are found there. And I guess we'll get into that here in a little bit.
First, look at these carvings. Did you see these?
Yeah, where are those from?
These are from Lake Onega, from what I find. The shore of Onega Lake carved on a granite plate. So these are all carved. It's a pretty good circle that guy did right here.
Yeah.
But then check out these other just rock carvings at other places, man. Look at this. Look at that.
What the hell?
Dude. Look how magnificent that is.
That is insane. It's a little like a monkey or something.
Yeah, man. And there's a lot of them. Do you know about Petra?
Petra.
The ancient city? Watch this one. Look at these lizards, dude.
Oh, what? That's sick.
Dude. Super sick. Let me show you Petra real quick. I've been watching videos on this lately. It's an ancient city and it's built into this rock, dude. And that door is 18 and a half feet tall.
What?
And if you look, I don't think you can see it here. There's a bunch of different location
you think
spots.
It's designed for giants?
I think so. But more is buried. I'm trying to find a picture where you can actually see like half of the doorway below the main doorway.
This is giants plus hollow earth.
Like there's.
Where's that at?
I forget.
That is incredible looking.
Massive, dude. It's like massive.
Jordan?
Maybe.
That's in the Levant.
But there's another 2 stories.
That's in the Levant.
Buried. That 15% has been excavated. There's another 85% like buried.
That is incredible. I want to go there.
All carved out of just straight up the rock.
That's incredible looking,
dude. Right.
So people Google Petra, look at the images.
Yeah.
You'll see what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like an impressive looking house carved into the side of a mountain.
Dude, look at this, the camel. Look at the camel in relation to this.
That is so crazy, dude. Wow.
Fucking crazy, right? Talk about Swiderians getting after it.
I don't know if that was Swiderians.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. Crazy. I love those lizards right there, though, in that rock wall. Yeah. Other carvings show swans sitting atop poles that are being climbed by human figures. These perhaps are meant to show the souls of shamans or those of the deceased entering the upper world via some kind of sky pole or perceived axis mundi.
Here we have another axis then.
Yeah, many of these images of swans at Lake Onega are to be understood as symbols of the soul or as messengers between the worlds of humans and spirits. Swans entering a crack or emerging from one appear to symbolize the passage of the soul of a deceased person or a shaman between this world and the other. So sometimes they have them like in a crack.
You want to show them the photos of that? Well, I guess we just kind of looked at the real things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's the photos. I don't know what that is. This little guy.
That's a depiction of the sun, if I had to guess.
Look at this picture. So there's the lake. Okay. And then the rock is right here. That's cool, dude.
Wow. That is impressive.
That's a good picture. Carvings are so old, too.
That symbol keeps popping up over and over again. It's crazy.
According to the finno-urgic mythology of northwestern Eurasia, which is derived almost certainly from a much older Uralic tradition that has originated among the Uralic-speaking peoples of the Ural Mountains in central western Russia, migrating birds, swans in particular, are seen to carry the soul into incarnation. Baltic folklore, it is the swan that brings babies into the world, not the stork. That was another interesting part. The stork, right? Who would have thought?
Well, I think it's, and it goes on to really kind of illustrate this point, but they're just using the birds that they see migrate from the areas that they live in.
Right.
And that's the bird that they use as essentially their soul bird that carries them into the afterlife.
I had no idea the stork was basically that mythology. I thought it was just some dumb cartoon idea Disney made up to entertain people. It's actually like ancient mythology. That's wild.
Yep.
Another part of modern society that turns out to be ancient mythology perpetuated and nobody even knows.
We get all these weird traditions from somewhere, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not Nazis.
Sometimes it is Nazis.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, swans. We already read that part.
In finno-urgic sky lore, the North Star as the center of the heavens was said to be the location of a column that supports the starry vault. As this revolves, it causes a great whirl at the North Pole, and it is through this whirl that human souls gain access to the land of the dead. Almost certainly, the long pole-like necks of the swans seen among the rock art at Lake Onega also signify the axis of the earth. Being connected to the celestial pole, it was upon this turning axis of the heavens that the souls of shamans and those of the deceased would climb to reach the afterlife. In some areas of Finland, a carved wooden sielolintu or soul bird is left next to a bed to stop the soul from escaping its physical environment during sleep. So basically, it seems like we've said all this before, but what we're saying is that the cultures that came way before the pre-pottery Neolithic peoples of Anatolia had the exact same beliefs of a hole in the sky, shamans, swans, heads, souls, all that. The close proximity of Karelia to Finland has led suggestions of a connection between Lake Onega rock art and finno-urgic creation myths. So, and it draws a comparison of the image.
Yeah, they have a really cool image of like
I'll share it real quick.
A swan with like a rainbow shaped back and what appears to be maybe two elk and what is the sun right there?
It looks like a person with legs, and that's their head. Similar to what's on Pillar 43, but it's detached from the body. So they're drawing a comparison between this and Pillar 43 because it's kind of depicting the same animals and symbology.
Yeah, the petroglyph perhaps shows the cosmic bird laying its egg of creation, being the greenish rock plug, and the three concentric curves forming the swan's body, signifying the three worlds. The circle emerging from the base of the twin lines can be seen either as a cosmic egg itself or the sun formed from its yolk. And this was kind of supposed to be the basis of the Finnish creation myth of the cultures of that area.
One clear link between the bird bones found alongside various burials in the Yuzhny Oleny Ostrov Cemetery and the rock art of Lake Onega is the connection with migrating birds, ducks, and whooper swans in particular. Across northern Europe, the Milky Way is synonymous with the path taken each year by migrating birds. To the Conti and the Mansi, formerly known as the Oistak and Vogel, respectively, who inhabit the Ob River basin of the Trans-Urals on the east of the Ural Mountains in western Siberia, and speak Ob-Ugric, a Uralic language closely allied to finno-Ugric, the Milky Way is the Duck's Road or Southern Birds Road. To the Sami tribes of Arctic Norway, whose language group is also Uralic in origin, the Milky Way is the path of birds or bird stair, like a stepping stair. To the Estonians, as well as the Finno-Ugric speaking Karelians and Vepsians, who formerly inhabited the region of Lake Onega, it was the Birds' Road, while farther east among the Turkic and Tatar peoples of western and southern Siberia, the Milky Way is identified as the Bird's Way or Wild Duck's Way. Many other similar avian-related names for the Milky Way can be traced from northern Europe across the Ural Mountains into northern Asia.
So the link between the Milky Way and the migrating birds comes most likely from the fact that during the autumn months, the Milky Way bridges the sky between the southeastern and southwestern horizons, aligning it with the flight path of birds returning from their breeding grounds in the Arctic North. Lake Onega was once the setting for thousands of returning migrating birds, such as whooper swans, that would arrive in the swing and then nest on the small islets and shores of the lake before departing toward the southwest in the autumn. And, that would have been a magnificent sight that would have made the lake seem like it had a magical role. Some of the Swiderian ancestors had almost certainly originated somewhere in the vicinity of the Ural Mountains, meaning they would have spoken a Uralic language that was gradually disseminated into the Finno-Ugric group of languages still spoken by many Northern European and some Central European populations today. The term Ugric in Finno-Ugric refers to Ugria, the legendary home of Mansi and Khanty people of Western Siberia. They were known to have venerated the swan or goose as a god, representing it in the form of a copper idol. So yeah, I mean, all those cultures, all of them had some type of name for the Milky Way that was synonymous with migrating birds because of the phenomenon that they witnessed, basically during the autumn months. So kind of wild.
Yeah. It's kind of cool though. I'm trying to imagine like tons of swans landing in this lake just thousands of years ago when that was probably the coolest thing you'd see all year. I mean, I'm pretty sure they saw a lot of cool stuff, like whenever they tied people to poles and just sacrificed them over fires.
Burned them alive.
I'm pretty sure that was intense with the Milky
Way. It
was
interesting. Yeah, with the Milky Way in the background, just burning human flesh.
Yeah.
So this also has significance whenever you relate it to the cosmos, and in particular into the constellation of Cygnus, which would have been the celestial swan. The constellation was most likely identified as a swan from both its appearance as a long-necked bird flying along the Milky Way, as well as the swan's role as a psychopomp accompanying the human soul into the afterlife. That would account why various burials found at Lake Onega's Yuzhny Oleny Ostrov Cemetery were accompanied by swan wing bones. They believe that this acted as a psychic link between the soul of the deceased and the swan spirit, in the belief that it would accompany the soul of the individual into the afterlife. Another interesting thing in that paragraph, it talks about the acquaintance that Kurdish, one of the oldest language groups in Southwest Asia, contains a number of words that have direct comparisons with those of the Finno-Ugric or Uralic languages of Northern and Central Europe, And thus, it would seem reasonable to suggest that the language elements were introduced by incoming Uralic speaking peoples, including Swiderian linked groups. And that's what's more, even closer links exist between the material culture of Gobekli builders and the peoples inhabiting the Ural Mountains at the beginning of the Mesolithic age, circa 9600 BCE.
Makes a fair case. He makes a strong case. The next big connection is the head, because we just talked about the
Shiger idol.
Yeah, and I got a picture shared right here. We just talked about the bird and the swans and all that representing the path of the soul. But now the soul itself is represented by the head. So in the Mansi and the Khanty cultures of Western Siberia, they were known to erect tall, anthropomorphized wooden poles that terminated in a carved human head. And one of the most famous and the first one, or the oldest, let me see, I think it's called the Shiger idol, as you said, has a radiocarbon age of around 11,600 years and was originally 5.3 meters in height, but today only upper 2.8 meters survives.
That's pretty big.
It is, man. That's already like 6-7 foot, dude. Look at that thing. Like the Mansi and Khanty examples, the Shiger idol terminates in a carved human head, while along its plank-like stem are several series of horizontal zigzag lines. Let me try to make that bigger. Horizontal zigzag lines. As well as various other carved heads. I don't see other carved heads, but on display today in the Sverdlovsk Regional Museum of Local Lore in Yekaterinburg, Russia, it is the oldest known wooden idol of its kind anywhere in the world. Anthropologist and prehistoric archaeologist Mikhail G. Zilin of the Institute of Archaeology at the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow and his colleagues, in an important paper published in 2018 within the Journal of Antiquity, draw attention to the design of the Shiger idol and the anthropomorphic nature of the T-pillars found at Gobekli Tepe, which are all of a similar age. As proposed by the current author elsewhere, the person who wrote the book we're reading from, and intimated also by Zilin and his colleagues, the advanced culture existing in the Trans-Urals at the end of the Upper Paleolithic age, early Mesolithic age, 9600 BCE. Hint strongly at a cross-cultural link at this time between the inhabitants of the Urals and the pre-pottery Neolithic world of Gobekli Tepe. So basically, this idol is the smoking gun of the cultural crossover between the beginning of modern civilization and those that came before them, before the Younger Dryas Impact.
Right. So is it possible that the incoming Uralic speaking peoples carried within the cosmological beliefs and practices relating to the transmigration of the soul and its connection with both the Milky Way and the Cygnus constellation?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jesse. One clue is the fact that the carved relief of Gobekli Tepe's Pool of 43 and Lake Onega's Neolithic rock art, seen right here, both appear to represent the same death journey taken by the soul to reach an afterlife among the stars. Both reflect an interest in the north and the northern celestial pole in particular, and both feature birds that can be identified with the Cygnus constellation, the vulture at Gobekli Tepe and the swan at Lake Onega in Karelia. The enigmatic set of petroglyphs on the tiny island of Bolshoi Guri in the northeastern part of Lake Onega also show a swan with a filled circle and 2 elks. So this is where those elks come from that they were showing us. They have a picture here, right? No. In each case, at Lake Onega and Gobekli Tepe, the filled circle appears to represent the northern celestial pole. This is the case, then the images of 2 elks meant to signify the movement around the northern pole of a single constellation, which is Ursa Major. Although most obviously identified as a bear among many cultures, the stars of Ursa Major were identified as a mythical elk by a number of finno-urgic or Uralic-speaking people of northern Eurasia, including the Mansi and the Khanty of western Siberia. Interesting. So the elk and the bear are synonymous with Ursa Major, depending on how far back you go. If you're talking about the Uralic cultures that came from Russia and turned into the Swiderians, or if you're talking about the other culture, what was it? The bear is seen by many cultures of the ancient world. I wonder what cultures see it as the bear.
Well, it's just Ursa Major is traditionally known as the bear constellation, like in its anthropomorphic form.
Yeah.
Like but what the Arthur's saying is that it was also known by the people, in the Swiderian areas that we were talking about earlier, up around Finland, the Uric area, the Uralic Mountains. They were known as mythical elk. But all of those constellations can be, I don't know, to me, you can kind of make whatever animal you want out of them. And all right, so it goes on to say that despite the actual procession, the stars of Ursa Major are always seen to revolve around the northern celestial pole in a circle that very gradually grows larger and smaller in size across one complete precessional cycle of approximately 26,000 years. When Lake Onega rock was created, circa 4,000, 2000 BCE, Ursa Major would have made a fairly tight circle around the pole. They did a employed the use of statistical and phylogenetic tools to conduct a detailed study of the antiquity and spread of myths and legends regarding Ursa Major. And they observed that the role of its stars as a mythical elk killed during a cosmic hunt almost certainly has its origins in the Paleolithic age. More significantly, they concluded that the hunt is reflected in rock carvings showing elk in Karelia. So they've done scientific work to determine that that the Ursa Major was represented by elk from those societies in Karelia. That's very interesting. So
yeah,
pretty obvious they were talking about the constellation Cygnus and Ursa Major with those carvings.
Let's get into Linda, dude.
Get into it.
Queen of the Birds, one legend preserved by Estonians, which is where Kunda is located, and that's who we're talking about, who, like the Finns and Karelians, speak a finno-urgic language, records that the Milky Way was created by Linda, or Lindu, the queen of the birds and daughter of Ukko, king of the sky. Having rejected the sun, the moon, and even the pole star as suitors in marriage, the latter because it was fixed to the same spot like a nail, Linda fell in love with the light of the north. They married, but eventually it abandoned her. Linda's tears of grief creating the Milky Way. Thereafter, this starry stream becomes the path along which Linda, in the form of a swan or human-headed bird, guides migrating birds going north. And here's a quote from a researcher. In our cosmogonic, how do you say that? Cosmogonic
myth.
That sounds weird. The creator of the world. In our cosmogonic myth, in Estonia, the bird is the creator of the world. If the cosmogonic myth were to be interpreted as astral folklore, one could state that the bird that is most often found in Karelian rock art has a nest in heaven. Heino Ilsalu's calculations maintain that, considering the precession, the North Pole used to be in the Swan constellation, or Cygnus, 14 to 19,000 and 40 to 45,000 years ago. At those times, the bird was fixed in the sky for the whole night, just as if it were making its nest on the birdway. That's crazy. So here's my first question is, when they're studying all of this bird symbology and path of the soul symbology in all these cultures, are those cultures, does that date to 15,000 years ago or 40,000 years ago?
Well, they're saying that it could that the North Pole that was in the Swan constellation dated both 14,000 and 40,000 years ago. If you figure out how it, considering the precessions.
Yeah.
Hey, give me a second. I got the fucking animals scratching at the door. Hold on a second.
All right. In all likelihood, the story of the Estonian bird goddess and her marriage to and eventual divorce from the light of the north is a metaphor relating to the shifting of the northern celestial pole into and out of the sphere of influence of both the Cygnus constellation and the Milky Way, circa 15,750 to 12,750 BCE. That might answer my question. If so, then there seems little question that Linda is a personification of the Cygnus stars in their role as the cosmic bird seen to guide the deceased through the hole-like entrance to the land of the dead, synonymous, as we have seen from Siberian, finno-urgic, Sabian, and also Gobekli Tepe tradition with the North Celestial Pole. So I think that was my question, and it dates to the 15,000 year mark. Wow. All right.
Yeah, there we go. We answered the question in the next paragraph. Perfect.
Yeah, and man, I can't wait to get into this. So Linda is the swan, and the swan carries the soul in death through the afterlife. All right. So while I was looking at pictures, J-Dog, I want you to see this too, because see this. So this is pictures, the Swan of Tuonela, which is what she's called. All right. So indeed, the higher the latitude from the equator, the more the stars turning about the northern celestial pole are going to have impacted on the mindsets of the earliest human groups to spread across the northern hemisphere, 45,000 to 9,600 BC, 45,000 years ago, dude. I mean, I know stuff existed then, but knowing complex hunter-gatherers and knowing the specifics of the humans is what's fascinating.
That's fucking crazy.
Can you imagine being a human 45,000 years ago?
I'd have been a complex hunter-gatherer.
I mean, wow.
Hopefully at an obsidian find site with some real power.
So basically, at an obsidian sign fight with what?
With some real power and influence over the local shamans of the time.
Oh, yeah. Camped out at the obsidian cliff. Trait like having all kind of people come in on camels and tie up bags of flint, chocolate flint and arrowheads, and then like give you
so they
gold.
Can make their arrowheads. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense more about the thing in the Bible where it says it's easier for a rich man to pass through the eye of a needle, or a poor man to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich. It's easier for a poor man to enter heaven than it is for a rich man to enter through the eye of a needle. And I think the eye of the needle is actually the place in Jericho or some city where out-of-towners have to go through a doorway, and they called it the eye of a needle because it's small. Because if you have more stuff than can fit through that doorway, you can't bring that stuff in.
No, okay, like a merchant carrying like a huge backpack or something through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So It's easier for a poor man to get into heaven than a rich man to enter through the eye of a needle. So you can be rich and have all this shit, but it doesn't matter coming here. So you can't fit some metaphor, but like that's how it was. And that type of life of carrying all these goods and traveling to a place to sell it and trade it came from these Gravettians and these upper Paleolithics and the Swiderians. And they were all obsessed with this bird lore. For example, a switch of identification from the swan to the eagle in association with Cygnus is found in connection with the mythical ash tree Yggdrasil, which is itself a metaphor for both the Milky Way and the Axis Mundi. Let me share that.
But now we've switched from bird lore to lores about the world tree. And it's talking about the bird that was seen at the top of the world tree, which was often a swan or a goose.
Yeah,
and it had a switch to an eagle.
3 elks. It's the eagle or some bird. And it also mentions that the roots represent something. I forgot if that's in the book or on
that's not in the
Wikipedia.
book.
It's not in the book. So it has 3 roots that come off. Here we go. The branches of Yggdrasil extend far into the heavens, and the tree is supported by 3 roots that extend far away into other locations. One to the well in the heavens called Auror Brunner, one to the spring Havaglimir, and another to the well Mimis Brunner. That's not what I read.
I don't know what any of that means.
I remembered one of the roots goes to the underworld, the other root goes to the land of the giants, and the third root goes to the land of the living or the land of the dead. An ash I know there stands. Yggdrasil is its name. A tall tree showered with shining loam. From there come the dews that drop in the valleys. It stands forever green over Ur's well.
Very nice.
Yggdrasil shivers, the ash as it stands. The old tree groans and the giant slips free.
A giant reference.
I know that I hung on a windy tree 9 long nights, wounded with the spear dedicated to Odin, myself to myself on that tree of which no man knows from where its roots run.
Well, this is a mythical tree.
I'm just reading some random poem.
But yes, Yggdrasil was a metaphor for the Milky Way and the Axis Mundi.
Sitting in its upper branches is an eagle. We said that has knowledge of many things, and between its eyes sits a hawk called Vedrfolnir. Did you read this?
Yeah.
Okay.
The eagle is identified with Cygnus, while the hawk is perhaps another asterism located in the same area of the sky. Once again, it might be suggested that the myths surrounding Yggdrasil echo an age when the Milky Way was seen standing in the extreme north, immediately below the North Star, something that last occurred as far back as 14,750 years ago.
Wow. So 15,000 years is a big number that keeps showing up. That's when these cultures were peaking, and then the culture started to warm up, and they started to hunt reindeer as the ice caps receded, and then boom, they got fudged up by comet impacts and all kind of things.
Plunged into another ice age.
And everything they had going for 30,000 years at least just started over. And the first thing they built was Jericho and Gobekli Tepe. 9,600 years ago after the ice age ended. That's interesting, right? And the pyramids were already there. Let's be honest. The pyramids had long been there.
They were there already.
And if giants were real, dude, giants could have built the pyramids. They did the math, man. Randall Carlson, I've been listening to his podcast, Cosmographia. It's so GD good, dude. It's so good. That's the one podcast you got to make sure to listen to, man. Wow, it's awesome. But I think it was on that he talked about how long it would take, all the millions of stones. Maybe he didn't, but anyway, all the millions, it's like 2.5 million stones that make up the Great Pyramid of Giza. And in order to construct it in the 100-year time frame, mainstream archaeology claims from like Khufu or whoever, you would have had to put one stone in place every 8.5 minutes for 100 years.
Damn.
Yeah, right?
That's pretty wild.
Bro. And that stone came from way far away. So including quarrying it.
Hundreds of kilometers away.
Including quarrying it, moving it, cutting it, designing it. You don't just immediately start stacking stones. There's all kind of stuff that happens beforehand.
It was so well engineered and mathematically perfect.
8.5, and it still holds up physically.
Yeah.
It's still People's houses from the 50s are falling apart.
Yeah. And here we have this structure that's who knows how many tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years old.
Yeah. Like the only damage to it is the outside shell being stripped and people vandalizing it, and then thousands of years of rain erosion on the Sphinx. Anyway, back to this. The big difference between the rock art at Lake Onega and the relief at Gobekli Tepe is that Gobekli Tepe has a vulture, not a swan. It's not difficult to explain that. In the Zagros and Taurus mountains of Anatolia in the Near East, vultures, as eaters of the dead, which we talked about last episode, they would eat the heads of the dead. They would have had a far greater impact on funerary beliefs and practices related to the soul's journey to the afterlife. At high altitudes, waterfowl just did not have the same impact on the human psyche, the reason most probably why at places like Gobekli Tepe, the vulture became the ultimate psychopath. To date, no easily recognizable representations of waterfowl, other than the crane and perhaps some ducks, have been found among the carved relief at Gobekli Tepe. Having said this, the headless figure seen on the neck of the lower vulture on Gobekli Tepe's Pool of 43 eerily echoes a Finnish folktale that tells of a Sami shaman who stands on the neck of a wild swan to make it reveal the secrets of Tuonela.
Here we go, Tuonela.
The finno-urgic land of the dead. That's what Tuonela is. There seems little question that this is a metaphor for imagined shamanic flight in the company of a bird. Something similar is perhaps represented by the headless human figure on the neck of the hooked beak at Gobekli Tepe. Interestingly, the Sami would make sacrifices to a wooden sky pole symbolizing the cosmic axis, so the sky or the world would not fall down. Quote, were such ritual practices inherited from the population's post-Swiderian forebears, whose own ancestors had survived the Younger Dryas Impact Event? The Kunda and their parent group, the Swiderians, brought with them into Karelia cosmological notions that were many thousands of years old, even in their own time. It is a strange thought, says the author, then that the Swan of Tuonela, as the national symbol of Finland, could because Finland is this hub of all of this. Like they all came 30,000 years ago, Russia, boom, 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 Karelia, Finland, and then it started into the Mesolithic. So it's like Finland is not some random country. It's the pivot point of a huge part of history, like way back history.
It's part of it. It's part of where the Swiderians were located at the time. And
to this day, their national symbol is the Swan of Tuonela.
Yeah, and that's what's wild.
It could to this day, it could reflect shamanic beliefs that are as much as 11,500 years old, if not older. Indeed, there is every reason to believe that they pre-existed the emergence of the Swiderian population of Central and Eastern Europe, and as we will see next, derived from a little understood, although highly important, population known as the Solutreans. So the Swiderians and all this is going even further back to the Solutreans, but the Swan of Tuonela, the land of the Tuonela is the Finnish land of the dead. The Swan of Tuonela is Finland's logo. Let's look at this stuff.
See, dude. The Swan of Tuonela.
Yeah, man. I want to show you this, dude. Maybe I think it's more interesting than maybe you will. So, pictures of the swan, the swan. So just like artist renderings and things like that. But check this out, dude. Did you ever make that connection? The swan boats? People riding in swan boats?
No shit.
Yeah. This whole time, people have been riding, for the listeners, we're looking at pictures of swan boats, the paddle boats shaped like swans that people go on dates in. Little did I know that this is like ancient mythological stuff showing up again in normal society. No one has any idea they're participating in some weird ritual of being the soul being transported by the swan.
Swan of Tuonela.
Yeah, man. They think they're just on some cute swan. This is ancient. It's that they don't make the swan boats by chance. That's what I'm saying. So weird. I don't know how to word it because I'm an idiot, but this was wild.
That is fucking wild.
And the swan always goes into the tunnel where you kiss, right? Like, Hey Arnold, the cartoon, you watch all these shows and like Disney shows, and they own the swan and they go through the tunnel, the Milky Way, the path. It's very strange, man.
I'm pulling up some Swan of Tuonela photos as well.
You can share at the same time I'm sharing. Go ahead, give it a try. Dude, look at that yacht, dude.
The Black Swan.
Yeah.
Photo of some Danes at the time from the Finnish area. Cool.
Yeah.
And so next week, we'll get into Solutreans, the Solutrean connection. Either that or some articles.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That was a fun episode, despite Zoom
being a piece of shit and only letting us do 40 minutes at a time and deleting the first 40.
Yeah, that's all right.
The first 30, really.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading this stuff. And,
yeah, it's very interesting, man.
Really filing it away.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed those 2 chapters. Find they were very interesting, for real.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. If you're still listening, shout out to Aaron Thibodeau. He listens to our stuff.
Hey, what's up, Aaron?
What's up, Aaron? He might have turned it off before now.
Probably so.
All right, man.
All right, well,
we'll
next
be back
week.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with some Solutrean talk. And everybody go listen to Leech by Golgothan. It jams. It really jams. Lard is my shepherd. Lard is my shepherd.
Oh, yeah.
And that song came on and I looked at the title, it made me laugh. I was laughing. So
that sounds extremely hard to play.
Lard is my shepherd.
Yeah.
That's
like
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to have a comic twist on it, on everything we do. That's the point.
And I got the audio back from Joe for our jam tape
For
that
Alfred
we recorded.
And Ted Naders.
We recorded a jam tape in February, and it was I got the audio back from Joe, so I'm working on videos. That'll be up soon. I'll let everybody know. Alfred and the Ted Naders, go listen. Death of Skepsis, go listen. Golgothan, go listen.
Metamorphicon,
we got some cool deal stuff coming. I'm gonna send that stuff to you.
go listen.
All right, everybody. So that's the end of this episode, and then there'll be an infinite number more because there's so much stuff to read.
There is an infinite number of stuff to read things to read. So
and whenever we're not putting out a lot of episodes, it's because we're
life shit.
Yeah, well, we compensate.
Research.
We compensate by coming back with 2 chapters instead of 1.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Peace out, everybody. Take
Peace.
care, J-Dog. Later, man.